You're listening to China Manufacturing Decoded from the Sofeast Group. Hi everyone, welcome back to China Manufacturing Decoded from Sofeast. I'm Adrian hosting, and today we're exploring one of the most exciting and probably misunderstood parts of product development, industrial design. Industrial design is about more than just how a product looks. It's about how people use it, how it feels in their hands, and how it connects aesthetics with manufacturability. But that's just my take on it. And to really dig into industrial design, we need an expert. And joining me is Vera Roldan. She's head of our design department here at the Sofeast Group. Vera and her team turn ideas and sketches from our customers into real manufacturable products all the time. Vera, it's great to have you on the show.
Thank you so much, Adrian. Thanks for having me here. So glad to be helping and to be guiding you and the customers through this process.
Yeah, that's amazing. Really happy because industrial design, I think it's a debut for you on the podcast, but it's also not something that we have covered a lot, but it is really important. So let's start big, right? For anyone that's developing a new product, why should they care about industrial design? What does it really bring to the table?
I would say industrial design, as you say, is not just about making something to look nice. It's more about understanding how it will connect with hands of users, with their daily life. So in this process, we're thinking from the user's perspective, how it feels, how intuitive it is, how it actually creates value when people use it. So when you think about design from the start, you save a lot of time. You avoid, for example, unnecessary complexity. You make the production process smoother. So when you don't bring design in early, you might end up with something functional, but maybe hard to produce, or even worse, something people don't really enjoy using. So for me, good design is not just about an extra step. It's what makes the difference between an idea and a successful product.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And we've kind of covered, the bringing products to market that maybe are not exactly mature in some ways before. And what you're saying about industrial design is kind of along the same lines. So what you're saying is if you're not doing this early, bringing in the design team early, there are dangers of actually, having a product design that has some negatives to it. So, is there an example you could share of this? Just not necessarily something that you've worked on, but maybe something that the listeners would know.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I remember a project where the first concept had too many parts, too many separate parts.
Mm.
That was going to make, for example, assembly really complicated or really expensive. Since we were involved from the start, we redesigned it to cut down the number of components, make it much simpler, easier to fit. That not only made the manufacturing easier, it also saved a lot on tooling, assembly costs later on. So there, that was where our technical knowledge come in.
Mm.
Understanding what's doable, what's tricky, and using that to make smarter choices. I like to think design and research not just as creative steps, but as risk management. So doing proper ID at the beginning is like buying insurance.
Yeah.
Uh, yes, and that would make the production and process smoother, avoid a lot of mistakes during it.
Excellent. Love it. Okay. So I understand the importance of avoiding mistakes or avoiding problems as you move through product development. If we get into the actual process of industrial design, then let's imagine that one of the listeners listening at the moment has just a rough sketch or a simple idea for their product. What's the best first step for them to take with an ID team like yours?
Well, I would say if all you have is just a rough sketch on a napkin, that's totally fine. The best thing you can do is to share it with an industrial design team. We will guide you and shape it into something more structured, thinking about, for example, who your users are, what problem the product is solving, how it should feel in someone's hands. From there, we can explore different alternatives like concepts, gradually, gradually refine them into something more like tangible.
Mm,
Uh, I would say a good starting point is just to share a brief. There, you can introduce who you are, what your company does, where your product fits into like your bigger vision. When you describe the product, try to explain it. Try to explain it as if you were talking to someone who has never seen it before. The more context you give, the fewer assumptions the something has to make. Another thing that really helps is showing inspiration, not only what you like, but also what you don't.
mm,
Um, Saying, for example, please don't use glossy finishes or I dislike this kind of shape. It's something just as valuable as showing what you love. It helps us to understand your taste and your brand identity like much faster. So, well, it's important to be clear about also about the volumes, target costs. There is always a link between how many units you want or you plan to make and what technologies and materials are realistic for their options. So, as much as information that you can give us to us, that's better. So we can early guide you toward the right choices.
mm.
Uh,
But
yep.
yeah, and all of this information, I mean, industrial design, you're not just robotically designing images. Really, it's quite consultative, isn't it? So you want to speak with the customer and really understand the type of product, but also features and even the types of materials that they're going for. And then it's like, because you're not just artists, you're kind of a type of engineer at the same time.
Yes, that's correct. That's correct. After we gather all this information, we start process where we start developing 3D models, 3D renders, even prototypes. So
Mm,
the user will be able to visualize that idea that they have in mind. So our process is very like step by step. We usually start gathering all this information that includes user research, market research, also looking into materials, technologies, cost implications. From there, we start creating mood boards, which helps communicate aesthetics and the brand alignment. Next, we start making hand sketches, explore shapes, functions, interactions. Of course, depending on the project, we use different techniques. For example, we use Scamper technique, which is a structured method for idea generation. We have many others. We also are using A tools at the moment. So we start like creating all these creative part and concepts.
mm,
And after that, we move into 3D CAD, creating renders, creating, for example, different color proposals. And then after all this process is completed, we deliver all these files to the engineering team so they can continue.
And the continuation would be going into actual tangible prototypes, right?
Right, correct.
Okay. The process, I mean, you've just gone through that there. So, manually sketching, but also using software, creating renders. Everybody listening's aware of this kind of thing. I'm sure everybody's seen, product renders before, for example. But does the process differ between different products? For example, like a smart device or a piece of furniture?
Yes, yes, of course. Well, at the company, we usually work with a mix of consumer electronics and home goods.
Yes.
For example, we have designed things like earbuds, wearables, smart devices, and also home products like lamps or storage items. So, with electronics, the process it's a lot more technical. You are working around components like batteries,
Mm.
PCBs, sensors, making sure everything fits while staying ergonomic and attractive. With home goods, the focus shifts more to materials, finishes, how the product feels, how it blends into a living room or kitchen. So the priorities are different. Electronics are more about engineering constraints. Home goods are more about lifestyle, emotional connection.
Okay. I get what you mean about trying to design around different components for some of the small electronic devices. For example, earbuds. I mean, these are really small products. They've still got to look and feel right, but you're working to extremely tight dimensions there, aren't you? And trying to work around very small components. So, yeah, I mean, I can't imagine how to do that, but it's a good job I'm not an industrial designer then.
True, true.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a more
Uh,
complex process, but yes, yeah, it's really nice when you finalize this process and start seeing something tangible and real.
yeah.
So, yeah,
Abs-
for me.
absolutely. Absolutely. I'm going to move on then to some of the potential issues that we might experience and how to avoid them. So, if we flip it around, you've said that it's good to bring in design early during development, and I would agree. But what is a common mistake companies make when they actually leave it too late in development?
Okay, well, it's a practical step to reach out to a design team in early. I would say one of the biggest mistakes is leaving that for too late. For example, some companies invest in engineering first and then realize the product is uncomfortable or unattractive or difficult to assemble. At that point, they either spend a lot of redoing things or or worse, they launch and face rejection in the market. So I
Hmm.
think it's really important to thinking from the start and have it as a part of the process, right?
So that could be something like investing money into a certain type of PCBA that's necessary to run the electronic device that you're producing, but then maybe finding out that it's just not feasible to fit this particular component or PCBA, which is going to be a bunch of components together, into the design that turns out to be feasible. Am I right in that?
Yes, correct. Yeah, yeah, yes. Well, sometimes you can, when clients come in and they show their product and ask for example, what can I improve on it? How can I make that better? Or this is the problem that we are facing. How we can solve it?
Hmm.
Well, sometimes you can spot the problems right away. For example, if the product has too many parts, it's uncomfortable, or for example, also the shapes or the exterior shell can be molded, or for example, if it use materials that don't make sense for the target price. You don't know what design really, you know there that design wasn't really considered from the start, right? So yes.
Right. Okay. So what I'm hearing is it's hard to design your way out of a difficult situation.
Yes, we can rework on it. If you already have a product, need some advices and help to trying to solve the problem you're facing, of course that we are able to help. We can rework from there, start like thinking the process, rewiring all the parts that converts into into that product, and offer solutions for that. We can make that process.
Right. Okay. But presumably this would be or could be more costly than if you started designing at an early stage.
Yes, that's correct.
Right.
That's why I suggest to always start with design. It's like the very first step of the
Mm.
process. But if you didn't, you can reach to us. We can help you solve the problems. But yes, what I suggest is to start with design first.
Right. Okay.
Mm.
I understand. Great. All right. You talk about, you know, reaching out to industrial designers. So collaboration with ID seems to be something that's really important, could even make or break projects. So how do industrial designers work best with engineers and suppliers once the design is approved?
Well, we collaborate across teams. We work side by side with engineers to make sure that the design is feasible. We keep in touch with suppliers as well about, for example, see materials, cost, see production methods. That's that constraints back and forth, which makes the difference and we makes the process smoother and help us to avoid surprises later on. So design is like the bridge between the creative vision and the reality of manufacturing something.
Mm. What's the R&D engineers, for example, are using the designs to create tangible prototypes? Is there some back and forth between your team and them? You know, are they showing you the prototypes and saying, are you sure this fits in with the design, or is there something that we need to change? You know, is there some dialogue there? I assume quite a bit, yeah.
Yes, exactly. That's how the process works. We usually start gathering the information, creating the concepts, making the 3Ds. And after that, we share it with the engineering team to make some back and forth, get reviews, analyze the different situations. So the process is like integrated, and we always be in touch with each of the teams to
Mm.
make it like smoother, and to avoid surprises at the end.
Yes, yeah, that's important. Yeah, avoid transparency and avoiding surprises. Absolutely. All right. So once a project is ready to move into tooling and or production, I mean, the designs will be locked by then, right? And so client should expect certain types of deliverables. What would your team normally give to them?
Well, by the end of the ID phase, what clients usually get is a full package, which includes CAD files, 3D renderings, realistic renderings, material specifications, CMF documentations, 2D layouts, and sometimes, well, prototypes. So it's basically everything engineers, manufacturers need to move forward with the
Mm,
process.
mm.
Mm.
Yeah. And when working with us, I mean, the customer owns the deliverables. Now, whether you're working with us or not definitely these are the sorts of things that you should be expecting from an ID team. So if they're not giving you these, that's a red flag and it's something to question for sure. So got another question though, right? If there's a smaller company and they're trying to, do their own design in-house, what would you say to them about what the real value of working with a professional ID team like yours would be?
Well, the real value of working with a professional design team is that we not only bring creativity, but also experience.
Hmm.
We have seen a lot of mistakes before. We know how to avoid them. That's something really hard to replace in house. So yeah, it's a good choice to start working with a professional design team.
Yeah, it's like you said at the start, it's kind of like an insurance, right? Because even if you invest your own money into doing design in-house, but the people trying to do it are not experienced, they could make mistakes and that's going to cost you more down the line. So, in terms of money and time, so that's obviously something that we want to avoid when we're bringing new products to market. So I hear you. And yeah, I think that's a really good point. If we talk about cost and timelines a bit, the question about cost is something that everybody's always going to ask. So, how do you strike that balance between making a product visually appealing but keeping production costs under control?
Well, balancing looks and cost is always a bit of challenge. Of course, we want that wow factor, but
Mm,
that doesn't mean spending more than needed, right? Many times the smartest choice is to simplify, use fewer parts,
mm,
make assembly easier, or pick a material that still feels premium but it's more affordable. So good design should add value without making the product too expensive, right?
mm,
Um, of course, that depends on the case, on the brand, or on everything, right? But thinking it from a cost-effective perspective, design will be able to help you to make something that looks really nice, but also is affordable.
yeah, and that's an important part of the consultation that I was talking about earlier. Because if a customer comes to you and said, "Look, we need to make this look good, but I'm quite, I have a hard budget limit. So what do you guys think?" Then obviously you can use your experience and creativity to come up with something that is balanced. So going back to, doing this in house, how are you going to find that balance in house if you don't know, if you don't have that experience? So I think that's a really important point you're making, Vera.
Hmm.
If some startups, for example, hardware startups bring a new product to market that maybe it's only a small team, they have a limited budget. Where shouldn't they be cutting corners when it comes to design, would you say?
Well, one piece of advice, especially for startups, don't cut corners on prototyping and user testing. It might feel that you're saving money in short term, but if you skip it, you risk production thousands of units that maybe nobody enjoys or can be used. A small investing in testing and ID could save huge losses later. It will help you to save cost and time.
Mm, there you go. So yeah, a small investment is worth it at the start. And again, this is something that we can help everybody with if you have questions about that. We're getting towards the end now, Vera. I wanted to ask you though, about design trends. These are moving fast all the time. Sustainability is something, certainly in the manufacturing space, that influences more and more products. So, would you say sustainability is influencing the way you and your team approach product design at the moment?
Well, sustainability is finally transforming the way we design. 10 years ago, it was more of a extra night thing. now it's expected, right?
Mm.
So we are continuously exploring, for example, recycled plastics, certified woods, designs that allow repairability, packagings that are as minimal as possible. So it's not just about being ethical, it's also a real competitive advantage at the moment.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt.
Mm.
And I wonder how many listeners are thinking, yes, sustainability is something that's increasingly important for our product or products. Hopefully, and surely some of you. So if we start to wrap this up, then you've already mentioned some of the important things that we need to think about, Vera, but let's just reiterate, right? For someone who's creating their first product, what's the single most important thing they should focus on when it comes to design, in your opinion?
Well, I would say test it with real users before taking it to production. Even a simple prototype can uncover issues you never expected. So that's important. And also work side by side with an industrial design team. They will help you look at the product from different perspectives, open up a new world of possibilities. So that's important. You may not have considered everything on your own, or could be something different on something new can goes out from the process. So I think it's a good choice to start working with an industrial design team.
Yeah, okay. And personally, what's your favorite stage of the design process? Is there a moment that really excites you normally?
Yes. Well, personally, my favorite stage of the process in when a sketch turns into a 3D CAD model or
Mm.
prototype. Is that moment when an abstract idea becomes something you can almost touch. So that's magical for me. I think it's most customers wants to. So seeing a prototype makes the products feel real for the first time. This is this is impressive. This is really
Yeah,
nice.
absolutely. Yeah, that is it. That's exciting. That creation, bringing something that didn't exist and now it exists tangibly and visually as well. That is so cool. And again, yeah, kind of feeling jealous here. And so we've got a couple of minutes left. Is there a success story that you can share where great design made all the difference to the end result?
Yes, there was a project where the product looked very simple at first, but once we start focusing on the user experience, how it feels in hands, how intuitive it is, all the small details, it completely changes the outcome. What could have been just another basic product turning into something that really stood out in the market.
Mm,
Uh, their attention to design is what made it a commercial success, right?
mm,
Uh, when you start design process, the possibility are truly endless. So you never know where exactly it will take you. But well, it's worth to try it because it's a it's a really good tool and a really good practice to include it on the process.
mm. Oh, that's just yeah, that's a perfect note to end on. So Vera, thanks so much for sharing your insights about industrial design. I've loved it.
Thank you so much, Adrian.
And to the listeners, if you're developing a new product at the moment and you want to take it from just a sketch on a napkin to reality, Vera and her team will look after you. So you can get in touch with us at sofeast.com and we'll put you in touch and discuss your project and see how we can help. So thanks for tuning in to China Manufacturing Decoded this time. We'll be back next week. Thanks again for listening to this podcast brought to you by the Sofeast Group. We're on a mission to provide you with everything you need to manufacture effectively in Asia, including inspections, auditing, new product development support, contract manufacturing, 3PL warehousing and fulfillment, and much, much more across Asia's key manufacturing areas. Visit us at sofeast.com, that's SOFEAST.com, to learn more and get help. If you've enjoyed the podcast today, please do rate, review and share, because it will really help others discover us too.